let's get right into it. And let's start with the Dallas Cowboys. I guess the biggest question mark surrounding this team is, the return to health of Dak Prescott, because, I mean, first of all, he just put up absurd numbers, Sean. So, I guess talk to the people about it, because you're really good at median projections and not overreacting to small sample sizes. So, I mean, what should the people make of Dak, who's currently a top 5 quarterback in ADP, of just his ridiculous numbers that he posted up last year, with the 400-yard passing games, and what can we expect from him this year?
Yeah, I think ridiculous is the best word to describe it. I mean, that pace he had before getting hurt was just insane. And a lot of that had to do with the shaky defense. And the defense should still be below average this year. So I think we'll still see that offense need to put up points. I think he's going to be healthy going into the season. I have no concerns about Dak whatsoever. This is one of the best wide receiver trios in the league. I think the one concern I do have is, he's already saying he's going to run the ball a bit less coming off this injury. Yeah. And with Dak, he isn't like a Lamar Jackson type runner, but he did put up pretty good rushing numbers. So that's just a slight concern, but I think, he'll make up for it by throwing, to CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, and Michael Gallup. I think if you take him in the top 5, I can get behind that. I just think there's other guys like Lamar Jackson probably has a higher ceiling, and I love getting Russell Wilson later than Dak Prescott. So, it's one of those things where you can't go wrong with any of these quarterbacks, but you just can't expect the pace we saw from weeks 1 through 5 last year. That was just an insane pace that he can't keep up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I think, it really hinges on the defense, and so many quarterbacks do, because, these guys are pretty predictable from week to week. They're a lot of them are what they are. You do get your surprises here and there, but a lot of it just comes down to the game script. And, for the first time last year, the Cowboys defense really fell off a cliff. I mean, it may have seemed bad, in prior years, but they actually had a top above average defense for most of Dak Prescott's tenure in Dallas. So, that really hurt. That really helped Dak. But on the flip side, you had, I think me and you might have started a game each at O-line for the Cowboys last year. I'm kind of drawing a blank as to when, but everybody was out for them.
Yeah.
And the defense was bad. And of course, those two things are going to hurt the running game. And so Elliott was a huge, massive bust. And, you didn't really get the Tony Pollard breakout that you exactly wanted either, because Zeke was still on the field. He just wasn't playing well. What do you make of this running game with Zeke at RB7 and Pollard at RB42 right now?
Yeah, so Zeke should benefit a ton from Dak coming back, improved O-line health. And I think he was dealing with a calf injury towards the end of last year at times. So he wasn't 100%.
But that wasn't his pride. I just thought he had a pride injury.
Oh, yeah. And I remember last year being worried, oh God, is Tony Pollard a serious threat now? So I think, we can hit the reset button on him a bit heading in this season. He's apparently looking really spry in spring. That you just glowing reviews.
Wait, who? Tony?
No, Zeke.
This is puppy season, though. This is everybody who's coming off an injury is looking. Yeah. If they're not looking spry, if they get a non-glowing review, if it's just normal, he's been solid in camp. It's his career's over.
Yeah, right. But it is good, a guy like Zeke. It's good to know that he's motivated going into the season. But yeah, Tony Pollard always looks spry. He's one of my favorite backups to stash. He goes in the RB 40 to 45 range. Love picking up there, because even when Zeke's healthy, he can have sneaky RB3 flex value for those buy heavy weeks. And then, if Zeke were ever to miss time, Tony Pollard's a low end RB1 talent. So I love attacking Tony Pollard, in the mid-late rounds of drafts.
All right, I'm going to try to get more of these questions in, just because I know people consider these when they're drafting, even though it's early. But Zeke is the RB7. He's the overall number 7 player in ADP. The wide receiver 1, Tyreek Hill, is number 9 in Fantasy Pros consensus half PPR ADP. When do you consider taking Tyreek or another wide receiver, a top wide receiver, or Kelsey, who's going off at 10th overall, do you consider those guys over Zeke? Should Zeke be at 7 above the top receiver and the top tight end?
Yeah, I think those three players, Zeke, Tyreek, and Kelsey, that's certainly an argument. And it depends on format, many different circumstances to decide who you go with. I think wide receiver is so deep. I'd probably pass on Tyreek there. I think I would probably lean Kelsey out of all three of those guys because of position scarcity at tight end. Like we've seen just over the past few seasons, how huge it is to get a guy like Kelsey early in the draft. Then you don't have to worry about taking a tight end in the late rounds. So I think out of all those three, I'd probably lean Kelsey.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with either. I would take both over Zeke. I mean, this has been my philosophy essentially since for people that have been following my career. I came to Action Network. It was like once Patrick Mahomes became a quarterback, it was like, yo, don't hesitate. Like if there's a question and you're kind of going back and forth about like a Chiefs receiver or especially a main one, like, or another guy. And remember, running backs get hurt. They miss about a game more than other positions on average. So for me, I would take Tyreek or Kelsey without really hesitating, especially after seeing kind of the floor for Zeke. Not saying he's going to hit that floor. I think, his ADP among running backs is deserved. It's just, you're not locked in that middle part of the draft to taking a running back, I guess is what I'm saying. Here, our annual tight end debate, we should start it off, in honor of our guy, Matthew Friedman, who of course left the company. We had all these arguments about like third string tight ends, and I don't think this is going to be fantasy relevant, but Blake Jarwin and Dalton Schultz are tight end 34 and 35 right now at ADP. Any thoughts as to who ends up on top there?
I mean, Jarwin could be fantasy relevant. And even Schultz too. I'm curious to hear where you stand on this. But I mean, is there any doubt that Jarwin would have been a tight end 1 last year if he stayed healthy? Because Dalton Schultz was the tight end 10 from weeks 2 to 17 when he filled in for Jarwin. So I don't think we want to shy away from this tight end situation. I think it's worth figuring out. I'm assuming just based on Jarwin's talent that he's going to take over the starting job and run away with it. So I have no problem taking him at tight end 20, especially in, a best ball format. But yeah, it's interesting. Schultz had such a good season that maybe he does make this more of a tight end by committee. But yeah, I think Jarwin has the upside at least to take a flyer on later in drafts.
Yeah, I honestly haven't predicted 50-50 because I think it is going to be kind of decided in camp, but I did want to get your opinion on that because I do think it is worthwhile talking about with this team and just how high Dak is taken. Anytime you see a guy like a quarterback taken highly, I think you can't leave out anyone when you're thinking about fantasy, especially just late round picks, best ball sleepers, things like that. But give us our prop, and I know it's to do with the wide receivers. So we'll talk about the receivers after you give us the prop for Dallas.
Yeah, so this one I need some help with because I have these guys tied in half-point PPR in their season-long projections. I have them literally tied, so help break the tie. Who are you taking, CeeDee Lamb or Amari Cooper?
I'm going with CeeDee Lamb, and I think it will be close. It could just come down to who misses games, but listen, I think Cooper's had some amazing success in Dallas, but he's also been inconsistent. I think CeeDee Lamb, when you look at how wide receivers make a jump from year 1 and year 2, you consider his talent coming out, you consider what he did last year. I just think that he's primed to explode. I trust his health more than Cooper. And so if you just kind of project it out, you probably get it even, like you said. But when I look at ceiling floor and try to kind of just put a little of my own, feeling into it and analysis into it, I go Lamb. How about which way would you lean? I know you haven't tied, but which way would you lean? Just picking if you had to pick one.
Just Lamb all the way. I mean,
yeah.
When you look at his stats last year, he only ran a route 72% of the time. They had Cedric Wilson and Noah Brown, splitting 40 to 50% of routes run per game. So I'm expecting Lamb to potentially run, 90% of routes run. So, he has room to grow in this offense. Coming out of camp, he's lining up in 4 different positions. I think the goal is to get him on the field for most of the snaps. So I'm going Lamb all the way. And I think he'll be a more consistent producer. I still, if you get Amari Cooper around that wide receiver 15 ADP, I think he's still a great pick there. He definitely gets a boost with Dak's return. But yeah, if I had to pick between one or the other, I just love Lamb's upside.
So given that you have two wide receivers in that top 20, Cooper at 15 and ADP, Lamb at 18, Michael Gallup, he was the guy to run those 95% of the routes most of last year. He's at wide receiver 51. If you're high on those two, should you be lower than 51 on Gallup, or do you think he has some sneaky upside too, or is he the guy that's going to kind of lose out to Lamb?
No, I think he has some sneaky upside because, he's going to have his big game. So best ball formats, he's still a great pick. It's season-long head-to-head. You might struggle trying to figure out which weeks he's going to go off. But, if either Amari or CeeDee Lamb misses time, he's going to be a, wide receiver 2. So that increases his chances of hitting his upside there. So, yeah, no, we've talked about it where you want to invest in this offense. So, getting Gallup late, I still think it makes sense. Even if he's going to be inconsistent, you want to invest in this offense as much as you can. So I'm still targeting him at ADP as well.